Hello everyone, welcome in my YouTube channel Learning Literature with Sudakshina Pathak. So friends, in my today's video, we are going to discuss sonnet number 116, Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds by William Shakespeare. Sonnet number 116 is one of the most famous love sonnet. In this sonnet, the poet argues that true love never dies, although there may be obstacles in the way of such love. True love is always constant. It never changes like the northern star. True love never dies, even when someone tries to destroy it. Rather than being something that comes and goes, love is eternal and unchanging. Here the poet says that those with loyalty to each other should never admit or allow anything to hinder their love or come between them. Now let's start our video. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. These lines are perhaps the most famous in the history of poetry, regardless of whether or not one recognizes them as belonging to Shakespeare. Straight away, Shakespeare uses the metaphor of marriage to compare it to true, real love. He is saying that there is no reason why two peoples who truly love should not be together. Nothing should stand in their way. Perhaps he is speaking about his feeling for the unknown young man for whom the sonnet is written. Shakespeare was unhappily married to Anne Hathaway, and so perhaps he was realizing his feeling for the young man by stating there was no reason, even if one is already married, that two people who are truly in love should not be together. The second half of the second line begins a new thought, which is then carried on into the third and fourth lines. Then he writes, Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Shakespeare is continuing with his thought that true love conquers all. In these lines, the speaker is telling the reader that if love changes, it is not truly love, because if it changes or if someone tries to remove it, nothing will change it. Love does not stop just because something is altered, as cliched as it sounds. True love, real love, lasts forever. The second quatrain of sonnet begins with some vivid and beautiful imagery, and it continues with the final thought pondered in the last quatrain. Now that Shakespeare was established what love is not, fleeting and ever-changing, he can now tell us what love is. Then he writes, Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. Here Shakespeare tells his readers that love is something that does not shift, change or move. It is constant and in the same place, and it can weather even the most harrowing of storms or tempest and is never even shaken, let alone defeated. While weak, it can be argued here that Shakespeare decides to personify love, since it is something that is intangible and not something that can be defeated by something tangible, such as a storm. In the next line, Shakespeare uses the metaphor of the North Star to discuss love. Then he writes, It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown although his height be taken. To Shakespeare, love is the star that guides every bark or ship on the water, and while it is priceless, it can be measured. These two lines are interesting and worth nothing. Shakespeare concedes that love's worth is not unknown, but he says it can be measured. How he neglects to tell his reader, but perhaps he is assuming the reader will understand the different ways in which one can measure love, through time and action. With that thought, the second quatrain ends. The third quatrain parallels the first, and Shakespeare returns to telling his readers what love is not. Then he writes, Love's not time's fool, through rosy lips and cheeks, within his bending sickle's compass come. Notice the capitalization of the word time. Shakespeare is personifying time as a person, especially death. He says that love is not the fool of time. One's rosy lips and cheeks were certainly pale with age, as his bending sickles compass come. Shakespeare's diction is important here, particularly with his use of the word sickle. Who is the person with whom the sickle is most greatly associated? Death. We are assured here that death will certainly come, but that will not stop love. It may kill the lover, but the love itself is eternal. This thought is continued in line 11 and 12, the final two lines of the third quatrain. Then Shakespeare writes, love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. He is simply stating here that love does not change over the course of time. Instead, it continues on even after the word and ended. Shakespeare uses lines 13 and 14, the final couplet of sonnet, to assert just how truly he believes that love is everlasting and conquers all. Then he writes, if this be error and upon me proved, the never writ, nor no man ever loved. In this part of sonnet, Shakespeare is telling his reader that if someone proves he is wrong about love, then he never wrote the following words, and no man ever loved. He is conveying here that if his words are untrue, nothing else would exist. The words he just wrote would have never been written, and no man would have ever loved before. He is adamant about this, and his tough words are which strengthen the sonnet itself. The speaker and poet himself are convinced that love is real, true, and everlasting. Now I will explain you the short summary of this sonnet. Sonnet 116 sets out to define true love by firstly telling the reader what love is not. It then continues on to the end couplet, the speaker declaring that if what he has proposed is false, his writing is fertile, and no man has ever experienced love. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching my video.